What people like about college basketball more than the NBA is the energy and the excitement and the fans and the students and the bands. And you know what's crazy? NBA playoffs are actually far better than the NCAA tournament for that. People combine the regular season college basketball or the big event college basketball with the NCAA tournament. The tournament's great because of the bracket and because of the one and done and because of the Cinderella and because of the Final Four. But all of those, environment-wise, they're not as good as the Boston Celtics. Yesterday, hosting the Brooklyn Nets. Now, regular season NBA to regular season, you pick the great atmosphere, right? University of Arizona, Kansas, Gonzaga, Michigan State, Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, go throughout, like Duke, sometimes Carolina. Like, those environments are better. We love the energy. There's actually not great energy in most NCAA tournament buildings. That's the crazy part about it. But that energy yesterday was tense. That energy yesterday was kind of ugly, kind of nasty, kind of like a snake pit. You talk about a confluence of things, Ramadan, Easter, Passover, and you think of Celtics, Boston, and a New York team. Granted, it's not the Knicks and Celtics. That would be iconic. Okay, it's the Nets, the other team. But you still have Kyrie, who, of course, not only is roundly hated by many places in the NBA, but especially in Boston, where he came, he saw, he said he wanted to stay, he left. The team was better before him and after him, and during his time in the playoffs, by most people's estimation, underachieved. Then he smooshed the leprechaun on the way out of town and made it out like it was everybody in Boston's fault. This is Kyrie Irving, the flat earther. This is Kyrie Irving, the anti-vaxxer. This is Kyrie Irving, I know more than everybody else. Kyrie Irving is a great basketball player. He is a polarizing figure in terms of his general everyday thought process. Of course, Kyrie Irving, even with his own club, famously said, we don't need a head coach. Excuse me? So, Kyrie and how he's handled the fans. Here's Kyrie on the fan interaction during the game.
Do you feel like the hostility that you get still?
Let's not focus on this. Like, ask me questions about the game. Like, it's not about the fans. The fans aren't playing.
From a basketball standpoint,
yeah.
Do you feel like the hostility you get?
There's no hostility, bro. It's basketball.
Well, you were flicking some people off. I'd say that's some hostility.
From what? What point? Are you guessing that that's hostility, or like hostility for me is like growing up?
Well, we've never seen that from you this season, where you are running down the floor flicking people off.
This is the first time you actually caught it because it's a big-time game. I respond in different ways. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to focus on that. If you want to ask me questions about the fans, go ask them. Go on the street and ask them questions. All right?
But I'm asking from your perspective, from a basketball perspective, do you feel like the hostility that you get...
It's not hostility,
fans,
bro.
Do you feel like the energy you get from fans in this building brings out the best from you?
Embrace it. Embrace it. It's the dark side. Embrace it. You know, it's nothing new when I come into this building, what it's going to be like, but it's the same energy they have for me, and I'm going to have the same energy for them. And it's not every fan. I don't want to attack every fan, every Boston fan, but, you know, when people start yelling and all this stuff, it's but so much you can take as a competitor. And, you know, we're the ones expected to be docile and be humble and take a humble approach. Nah, that's the playoffs. This is what it is. You know, I know what to expect in here, and it's the same energy I'm giving back to them.
This is Shaq and Barkley after the game.
Well, if the great Bill Russell went through it, I wanted to go through it also. I don't really want to hear all that. And, you know, certain cities, they don't care what you say at the press conference. You know what's going to happen in game 2? They're going to be talking more smack up there in Boston. I played in Boston 2 years, but listen, it happens to the best of us. You don't think people said stuff to Charles Barkley, said stuff to Akeem Olajuwon?
Come on, man. Please stop, man.
Yeah.
Chuck got it from his home fans.
Hey, most of the fans are amazing. Some of them going to say some rude stuff. Please stop it, you athletes today, whining like little...
Bill Russell went through it earlier.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, man up.
Look, I think this is really important, okay? It's really important. fans that hurl the type of curse words and insightful, not insightful. What's it called? When you incendiary sort of language, like you're gross. You're gross. Booing, cool. You suck, fine. Okay. But the curse words, like, what are we doing? On the other hand, it's Boston. And I think some in Boston, like Philly, like New York, think there's a reputation to uphold to be the biggest D-bag you can possibly be. And there is something of a Roman Colosseum sort of feel to it, right? You even have have you noticed this? I can only think of 2 places in the NBA that still have the organ playing during possessions. Dun, 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 dun. I think it's the Knicks and the Celtics, right? Like it's an ode to an older day, to an older time. I mean, hell, they still have the parquet floor, which has been played on forever. It's just it's iconic, and I think some Bostonians think that being an a-hole in the stands is iconic. But there's only one way to win if you're Kyrie Irving. There's only one way. Only one way, because we know that. While you and I would guess, are sane human beings, it won't trigger us to be even more reactive, to be even more nasty. All it takes is 10, 20, 50 dudes in, middle-aged dudes, 30-year-old dudes, Smitties, white hats, cocked just a little bit to the right, couple tall beers after pounding some beers before walking into the garden, and they let them have it. Look, the only thing that matters is if you win and if you lose. Right? Given the double bird, like, what are we doing? You're allowing them to know that you hear them. Whereas the best of the best, they might say something under their breath. They might say something to somebody courtside. But the win is on the scoreboard, right? And the fact remains that Kyrie Irving was the defender on the last 2 layups that the Celtics won with. And Kyrie Irving had the basketball for, I would say, 15 of the 24 seconds in the last offensive possession for the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie Irving blew it. It's not only his fault, right? Like, the rest of the team got spread out defensively after a timeout, and they gave up a layup in 4 seconds where there was 38 seconds to go when the Nets got the ball back. The Nets clearly didn't have a plan and were surprised when Al Horford just ran and double-teamed him. And he didn't have a ton of passing options. Could have called a timeout. They could have reset. A million things could have happened, but it was an awful possession. Kevin Durant was watching the basketball. Marcus Smart with a great shot fake. An unbelievable cut by Jayson Tatum. And then he caught and spun and finished. And Kyrie, who was also ball watching, missed a steal by, I don't know, a matter of inches. This is not, he was solely to blame for losing the game. But what are you doing? Telling people to, if you haven't seen the video of what he said walking to the locker room when somebody's yelling insults at him, if you haven't seen the double birds, just feel free to peruse the internet. It's there and it's alive for you. And I don't want to declaw him. I don't think I love the idea of using that energy to push you through. There's nothing like it. Like, there's nothing like winning a road game. But they didn't win. And he was on defense. And the guy they scored layups on the last 2 possessions. And he had the ball and they got double-teamed. And he over-dribbled. And he dribbled himself into where he was stuck. And he threw it out to KD, who had no time, and just caught and chucked up a shot. Instead of worrying about the double birds, instead of worrying about what the fans, how about, they might double team me. Where am I going with the ball? How many timeouts do I have? How can I do this? Do I know that it distracted him? I have no idea. But the only win is not in the double birds. The only win is not in saying somebody to perform an act on you. The only win is to win. And Kyrie lost yesterday. I don't know. Like I believe this is a huge, huge universal topic, and there probably is no wrong answer, right? Do you sit because he's like, do I sit there and do I take it? Do I sit there and I take it? Do I lash back out the way that he did? My answer is somewhere in between. Just a little scoreboard point at some point in the game, and when the game is over and you win. And then you can stand there like a gladiator in the middle of the Coliseum, like Russell Crowe. In the meantime, Kyrie just feels like a guy who thinks that he wants all of this heat and criticism, and that's where he believes he generates his energy, and that's where he believes he can take a piece of the dark side, and that can help him push through and help him win the game. But one game in, didn't work. If you're a valued customer, you deserve a simple gesture of appreciation from your credit card company. That's why Discover matches all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year. Discover, exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply. It was a great atmosphere, man. It was awesome. What a great basketball game. And I thought the Nets were going to win it. I did. But, you have so many factors in there, right? Ime Udoka, who made some great adjustments, and they just found a way to win the game. He doesn't call a timeout when they get the last rebound, and they go down and score. Ime was an assistant with the Brooklyn Nets last year. Like that, I had an amazing time watching NBA basketball, and people are in denial of it because of other parts of the NBA they may not like. Just watch the games; they were fantastic.